Thank you for joining United Policyholders tonight for our webinar on construction financing and project completion. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. I wanted to just do a little housekeeping first. If you'd like to download and follow along with the slide deck, this is where to find it on our site. You can also view recordings of past events and related resources there as well. A little bit about United Policyholders in case anyone in the room has not heard of us before. We're a nonprofit that operates in all 50 states, and we try to serve as a trusted information resource and voice for insurance consumers across the country. We've been doing this work in this space since the Oakland Hills wildfires and Hurricane Andrew, so 30 plus years of experience. As I said, we are a nonprofit. We are funded exclusively by donations and grants. We do not take money from insurance companies so that we can be that independent voice to help create that level playing field for consumers such as yourself that are going through the insurance claims process post-disaster. A little bit about us. Team Up is our small professional staff. With me tonight, Annie Barber, Amy Ludwig, myself, I'm the Deputy ED of United Policyholders. We partner very heavily with government and nonprofits to help do the educational work we do. And then we have our volunteers. So we have Team Up, our previous catastrophic loss survivors who are paying their hard-won knowledge forward. And then consumer-focused professionals, such as our guests today, who are volunteering their time as subject matter experts to help educate you in the process. We have 3 programs, the Roadmap to Recovery, which is our program tonight, which is where we help people respond to an insurance claim post-disaster and navigating that process forward. The Roadmap to Preparedness is where we take those lessons learned and help homeowners and communities reduce their risk and be better resilient to disasters and adversity. And then Advocacy in Action is where we fight for those consumer rights and protections to create a better space for people in the face of future disasters. Just making it, taking those lessons learned and making that situation better for consumers in the future. Fine print. As I mentioned earlier, this workshop is general guidance only. We're not providing legal advice. Our speakers are volunteering their time as educators, and view this as an educational opportunity to learn more about this topic. You will be able to ask questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So please feel free, if you have a question, pop it in. We will try to answer it in the appropriate time. But Annie, if I missed something, please catch it and bring it up. Thank you. One more thing of note. So we know we've got several people from different disasters across the country joining us. If you have not visited our disaster insurance help libraries, this is where you find them. Really good resource for you to find samples and examples, state-specific resources, our Survivor Speaks tip series, and then upcoming events. Joining us today, I have, as I mentioned, Annie Barber, our Roadmap to Recovery liaison, Doug Robinson, President and CEO of One Home in California, and Larry Russell, President and CEO of TRC Residential Incorporated in Colorado. So thank you all for joining me today. One final piece of advice that we like to share, just reminding people that recovering from a disaster is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's going to take time. And so we try to create this bite-sized piece of educational offerings to help you navigate that process. Best practices, get it in writing. We always are telling you to document, keep a journal, who you talk to, what you talk to them about. And especially as you're getting to this end piece of wrapping up your insurance claim and your rebuild, keep it professional, keep it concise, keep it in writing, and, be prompt in responding. Today's topics, these are the things that we'll address today. Pitfalls to watch out for as your construction project gets towards that finish line. Moving home with a temporary occupancy versus a final. Expectations between you and your builder. Some resources if things do not go as planned. lien waivers, releases, completing your rebuild finances, and then final steps to wrap this up. And so right now we're going to do a deeper dive on construction. Annie, feel free to jump in at any time. Doug and Larry, same for you as well. So the first thing is just pacing yourself. And Annie, I know you summed this up very nicely, being, having someone who wrapped up your rebuild from the Tubbs fire. And so I'd like to pass this one over to you.
Thank you. All survivors have this anxiety right in the middle of their chest that propels them forward. And in many cases, it propels you to just want to get home. So take a deep breath, understand that you do not want to accept lower standards than what you paid for. You need to be patient, don't jump the gun. And if you really push it and try to get there before the house is ready, you'll cause yourself a ton of other issues. I know most people have waited 3 years to get home. Another month will be okay.
Thank you for that. And I know we have some folks from the 2020 fires joining us today. And so they're getting into that 4th year, and it's a long slog. But have patience, get through to that finish line. So this is some of the guidance about wrapping up your rebuild, right? Consider a private inspection before that final payment. You want to make sure you're on site for that final inspection. Gentlemen and Annie, just pointing out the occupancy permit, that temporary occupancy permit is what a lot of people have their eye on the prize, right? Because their ALE is running out. They're trying to get home. But that difference between that and that final certificate of occupancy. And so anything you want to say to that, Annie?
So before I pass it on to these gentlemen, many people in Coffee Park and our city was really trying to push the temporary occupancy because they just wanted people to get home. But it does have its downside, which is you just don't have the collateral anymore to have your contractor, and not one of these two, but there's many contractors out there who will just then drag their feet on finishing items. And so it's just better to get a final certificate of occupancy. It also ties into your construction or builder's risk insurance, which we'll get into later. Doug, did you want to take this at all?
Sure, I'll poke around a little bit. So in my 30 plus years of construction experience, contractor experience, it's been a while. Kind of all over the country, Oregon, Washington, a little bit of Colorado, mostly in California. But I was working for public builders for the first half of my career, public and private home builders. And when it comes to completion of a home, just in the general sense of it, it was in our best interest as the builder as well as the owner. So there's always the same kind of pressure, a little bit different with mortgages being ready, people wanting to move, rentals expiring, the house is delayed for various reasons. And there's always that pressure to move in. And really the results of that, literally thousands of homes, the more complete the home is, the more satisfied the customer is the bottom line. From the first half of my career, I've also done remodels. I've done fire rebuilds. I've done all of these, and it's always the same case everywhere I go. There's an impatience to move in. Some of the settings, especially in the remodels I was doing, it took three coatings of wood floor lacquer, which dries for days. It just makes people really, really, the anticipation grows. I'll put it that way. So really, I'm just echoing and amplifying the fact that create a list. Make sure the home's complete and clean and ready before you even do your first walk. Everything should be there. Towel bars should be there. Mirrors should be in. Cabinet doors should be on. Things should not be missing, back ordered. That's not the time to do it. I would be stubborn. Make sure the home's 100% and ready, clean and ready, and then do an orientation. You get walked through the home, showed the features of the home. There's sprinklers probably now. There's things that have been probably changed from the home you had. definitely changed. Take your time, orient yourself, and then also find the little things. Typically in our the way we do it is have a walkthrough orientation. The items we find, we note, and then 1 week later we complete those items and have a second walkthrough. Essentially, the goal being 100% completion, knowing you're going to move in, find things later, but still at that point in this moment, the house is ready in both of our opinions and signed off. So that's kind of the structure in which we do it. And it's in my experience, again, with heavy warranty experience, the more satisfied, the more 100% complete list, the much better experience it is in warranty as well.
Thank you. And then that feeds into as that work is actually finished, the lien releases, and I know we'll talk about those
Yeah.
as we move forward. So this is from your perspective as the homeowner, right? So you're going to have to, as Doug said, determine if that final quality is what you were promised with that final walkthrough. There will be that punch list of things that still need to be done. As Doug said, there should be some time, usually a week, for them to remedy those items before that final occupancy. If with insurance, you're going to have to convert your insurance from a construction to a traditional homeowners once that rebuild is complete, unless you were able to take your existing homeowners and add and turn it into a builder's risk. And then you have, confirm with your builder, how anything that else that needs to be done. From the builder's,
Valerie,
Yeah.
excuse me, Valerie.
Yes.
I wonder if we couldn't back up a couple
Yeah.
pages. I'd like to expand on what Doug said,
exactly.
if that's possible. Consider
That
a
one
private
right there, right?
inspector before final payment. That's a very good point. What was not mentioned is an owner architect contractor meeting, which probably should occur as well, and have the architect walk through and ensure, because he's the educated member of the whole group besides the contractor, that the contractor has in fact built it according to plan and specification. And he, the architect, probably, along with your private inspector, are the two best resources that any homeowner moving back into a new build could access in order to ensure that the product is as designed.
That's an excellent point, and we will definitely update this slide deck to include that moving forward, Larry.
If we could talk about occupancy permit,
Mhm.
Doug made some very good points. And as a builder myself, I wish I had the luxury of having the homeowner wait a week while we wrap things up before they move in. Often that is not the case. As you well know, rents are expiring. They're anxious to move in. It's difficult for these folks sometimes to take a deep breath and have the luxury of being able to sit back and take his or her time for the house to be absolutely 100% complete. One of the issues that we commonly run into is our clients are anxious to move in and they don't understand the final inspection and occupancy permit process, or the certificate of occupancy. In our experience, most municipalities and governing agencies will not permit occupancy until that certificate is in fact issued. As a builder, I do not like to see personal items in the home prior to final inspection. I want the inspector to walk through a clean, finished home so that we get it inspected and get it signed off as efficiently as possible. Temporary occupancy, some municipalities do offer that. Many don't also. So that certificate of occupancy is critical.
Sorry.
I think that's all I have to add.
Excellent. Well, let's.
Yeah, I would to amplify it. I'm not a fan of TCOs ever. Maybe in a model home complex to move models, furniture in, etc.
Right.
But to move a person in or to move in stuff into a garage, it never ends well. So it's not a good practice. So that deep breath really is a big deal. And in California, we have so many inspections in the last 2 weeks. You could have a clean, ready home and still wait for your Cal Greens and your fire sprinkler guy and all of these fire department, all of these folks that have to go through your home and then have an issue and it takes a day to remedy. It's a good 2 weeks is what we give it now to get a final on a home. And that's in a perfect sense, comfortably. So in that time, we try to put in this walkthrough orientation so we can kind of run 2 different parallel lists and finish the home timely manner.
All right, well, this slide is perfect for that. So this is our outline of what the builder's perspective is, right? So when the home is rebuilt, replaced, you know, as you both have alluded to, there's that final walkthrough, that final punch list. You're talking, you know, talking to the homeowner that they're going to sign off that it's to the quality they want. The contractor is paying off the balance of the utilities for the rebuild, switching everything back over to the homeowner. You know, those lien releases are being done. If there are any warranties for appliances, irrigation lights, any of that, any instructions, all of that conveys over to the homeowner at that time, correct? Anything else that we're missing here?
No, the instructions and everything is usually kind of a binder thing. I don't know how you present it, but that's usually a formal. In California, there's a Cal Green, especially, that actually dictates what's in that binder. And then the lien releases are kind of in tandem and should have been coming the entire time. You should be getting conditional or preliminary lien releases throughout the build. So the finals, the final releases, it should just be the same system as it's been coming the entire time. Every payment should be coming with releases.
Got it. And then going back to what you mentioned earlier, the municipality's perspective, right? Project completion of them means building codes are met, health and safety compliance. It does not ensure that your home is a well-constructed home. And if there are code violations uncovered, and Annie, I know you have an example we'll look at in a minute, the municipality can rescind that occupancy permit. And so, you know, understanding that there's a difference between these two things. And so this is an example of a private inspection report. And Annie, can you speak to this piece?
Sure. So when you have your final inspection, you don't know what you're having done. When you have your walkthrough, you're not familiar. We're laymen. We did not sign up to build a house. We were forced into building a house. And so there is a definite learning curve to know what you're looking at and looking for. So having a private inspection company is, in my opinion, extremely important in these situations, because we have a lot of builders who come in who may not be real master of their craft. They may be just taking an opportunity because there's a lot of work. So if you go to the next slide, these are the kind of things that they're looking at. And it can obviously go much deeper than this, but these are the things that homeowners tend to not see until a month, 2 months, 4 months after. Building codes should be inspected and watched closely by the inspections from your city or county, but even they miss some. And a second set of eyes, the 2 builders that we have here, obviously, we trust them and we know that they do quality builds, but
Well,
that doesn't mean.
and we know they have cleaned up behind other builders to remedy these
Yes,
things well.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. And so these are some of the problems that,
Is that, can I jump in? Is that, was that it for the inspection slides?
yes, yeah.
So my only addition would be that the end is a good time to take a look, but during the process, if you're going to engage an inspector, I would say there's another key point at shear. So engineering checked, they are available to check that. So the engineering on the framing as well as the concrete, I wouldn't go as much as the pre-pour, but prior to moving the mechanicals into the frame. Maybe take a look at shear. That one may or may not be, but the second one would be the waterproofing of the outside, especially in stucco situations. Somebody go look at the lath, the paper, how the house was papered. Just pause it for a half a day to go look. Could clean up a lot of unforeseen issues that an inspection at the end would not see. You can tell a lot from the results of an inspection at both of those stages of how this is going to proceed. And I would assume some of these inspectors may or may not. This looks more like a resale inspector kind of report. There are definitely little higher level inspectors it's a pretty good market in the new home construction world, especially Denver metro kind of thing. So they'd be available to hire for those resources. If you were going to hire an inspector, I'd say go all the way. Let them look at everything.
Yeah, and we certainly do when we talk about mechanics of building for people starting, mention
Right.
the idea of engaging one. Larry, for Colorado specifically, what types of things have you had to clean up before or that people might see there?
Well, the things that I've had to clean up is when the client will overpay the contractor or pay him prior to the work being completed. The inspection process in Louisville and Superior, where we have done a lot of building over the past couple of years, is pretty thorough. We also are going all electric homes for the most part. And so our clients have been engaging the services of HERS raters. And HERS is an acronym that I have been told what it's supposed to mean, but I never remember. But it's a rating process for the energy efficiency of the home. And to speak to what Doug just said, part of what the HERS rater does is test the air exchange integrity of the home, which is very important, and also the insulation and the efficiency and the compliance of the HVAC equipment to the HERS report. So, actually the HERS rater is a very important resource as well, but I cannot overemphasize the value of engaging the architect and the structural engineer and the HERS rater during the construction process. And Valerie, you're correct. The building inspectors may catch or may not catch everything. But if you have the ability to engage the services of a HERS rater, the home inspector, your architect, and your structural engineer, you're going to be far better off because they know what to look for.
Well, excellent. Thank you both for that. All right. And so we're jumping into, and you both have already alluded to some of the problems people face with their builders, making sure that end product meets the expectations. It's a level of fit, finish, and quality that you contracted for. Things have not been substituted. You want to make sure that if it's in the contract, it's covered. If you see your contractor pulling away resources to start working on another project, that's a concern because that's delaying you getting home. And so making sure that they get you over the finish line. And Annie, this last bullet is something I know in the Tubbs fire, you've had experience with community members. I'd like to have you address that. Next slide might be the one that looks at.
Yep. So we actually had, and this was not just one builder. We had a few builders who locked homeowners out because they were trying to pressure them into giving final payment before it was actually finalized. And this is a couple that graciously went and took this picture so that we could use it in our deck and in our examples of being locked out of their home. And it's literally holding people emotionally hostage because all you want to do is go home. My neighbor across the street, for 2.5 months, he drove by his house every day, twice a day, to see if anybody was there so he could sneak in. So just know that it's out there. It's not going to happen to the 99% of you, but some of these things do play out, unfortunately.
Right. And that goes back to what Larry was saying about, keeping on track with your payments, because that's where he's had to come in, where contractor took more money than they did for the work. And so, they abandoned that project, and then you're having to spend more money to bring somebody else on to finish it. And this is just a little synopsis of if you needed to break up with your builder, what needs to happen. So reviewing the contract with legal, do you have an out? Obviously, you want to resolve it with the builder first if you can, because you really just want them to, as Annie said, complete the work and get you home. If they're not willing to complete that, will they leave the work voluntarily? If not, you're going to have to get control of the property and the permit in your name. If you're in that space, you want to make sure you file a report with your municipality so that they know that there's a problem and you or someone else is taking over your construction on your behalf. File a complaint with your whoever is the municipality for your contractor's licensing. There are other resources here. Small claims court, you might have a bond claim, you might be arbitration, mediation, but you may have to hire an attorney. So again, you want to make sure that they are, you're staying on track with things.
And I'd like to add to this that after our fire, we were advised that there would not be builders that would be willing to pick up and finish a build that had been started by another contractor. Fortunately for us, when we did run into major problems, and I'm not talking about a little argument or a disagreement, but with major problems, there were builders who were willing to take that on, which was a huge relief to us. I believe Doug had picked some up. I think Larry
Yeah.
has told me that he picked some. So there is resources out there for you to get your build finished and not have to keep dealing with the problems.
All right, thank you. You're going to show really quickly the resources. This is for California State Contractors License Board. They do have an arbitration program. This is how you may qualify and the advantages of. So here's a little more detail on that without the very tiny print. Colorado, because they do not require general contractors licensing at the state level, it's regulated at the local. And so here are the resources for Boulder County, the city of Louisville, and the town of Superior. Larry, anything you'd like to add to that before I go to our next slide?
No.
All right, let me keep it moving.
Except that if we could back up a little bit, when one is held hostage by a contractor because he wants advance payment, I would think that another powerful resource would be contact your insurance company, contact your adjuster and tell him that you're having problems and have the insurance company step in. Most of the homes that we built, all of them were our clients were relying on funding by the insurance company. Often that source of funding was augmented by a lender. And so a lender has a vested interest in having a project that moves smoothly too, because that's its collateral. So you may want to think about involving the insurance company and involving the lender as well.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Larry, because usually when we're starting to talk about the mechanics of rebuilding, we stress to people making sure you line up your insurance company draws, your mortgage company draws, and your builder's draws, so that everybody lines up. And if that didn't happen, that is a way to put some pressure on them. Great call. Let me get us back over here.
Yeah. Don't pay ahead, don't pay ahead, and then don't pay ahead. It's just it. Don't pre-fund material. Don't give deposits for things. if somebody's building a house and can't carry the cost of holding on to material for more than a week, that's a red flag. So there should be some balance there. Don't pay for anything that's not on site and installed. Just putting it out there.
Excellent, thank you.
We found in our rebuild that many contractors had not done fire rebuilds. And it does become more problematic. They bite off a little bit more than they can chew. They don't understand the dynamics of how it should be financially play out, or what kind of backing they need to have to navigate this. And so that is an important conversation to have with your builder. Larger builders obviously have more resources. Smaller builders, you want to make sure that they have some cash or loan to. Yay, that wasn't my dog.
Wasn't mine either. Excellent. So before I jump out to move us forward under rebuild finances, Julie has a question in the chat. It's California specific. Is the Contractors License Board better to make a claim or a complaint better would that be better than the Better Business Bureau? And then also, is there any chance a builder could sue a person for making a claim for, quote, defamation of character?
I don't know much about lawsuits, but I'd say the CSLB for sure would be the stronger of the influences. Better Business Bureau is more of a club that I understand, and being around it, I haven't heard about it for 20 some years. It was fairly powerful in a couple of jurisdictions I worked in, but you kind of paid for your position in the BBB, and then you wanted to maintain it. So I'm not sure its influence, at least in the Sacramento, Sonoma County area that I'm familiar with, is as great as especially the CSLB. CSLB is a very heavy hand. They may be slow, but they're the state, and they'll look into it. So I wouldn't know about repercussions, or I couldn't speak to that.
Got it. And Larry, so what would be recourse to report that? Would it just be going to the appropriate jurisdiction in your city or county?
Hey, Valerie, I think when you get to this point, it's time to call the attorney
Got it.
and follow his guidance.
Exactly.
If you take matters into your own hands, you're going to be disappointed. A qualified, competent attorney knows exactly where to go, what to do. And unfortunately, in my experience, that's going to be your most effective resource.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. All right, we're gonna touch really lightly on the rebuild finances. And so when we're talking about lien waivers and releases, could you gentlemen explain the difference between the conditional and unconditional, and what people should be looking for? Like, what does this look like? Because it's complicated to understand what you should have a lien release for, how they get handled, and all of that.
You first, Doug.
Me. So at least California, contractors have a right to lien a property they're going to work on. It's a pre-lien. So they send out notices that, hey, I got a contractor, a subcontractor, I've been contracted or awarded to work on this property. So they'll send out a notice in the mail, which is just a notifying everyone, the owner, construction lender, and anyone else they can find, basically, is that we're going to work on this house. And so that's the notice. And then the work occurs. And if it's in the case of the, what's the plumbing for say, so the plumber's usually paid in 3 different tranches. So let's say the plumber has a $10,000 bid or proposal. When they do the foundation, it's either an underground or rough under the floor. They usually get paid a portion of that $10,000 for that work, which would get to a conditional lien, which means I've been paid for X amount of money, and or when they send in their bill, I'm sorry, they'll send in a conditional. And once they are paid, they will send in they will acknowledge that conditional has been paid. It's another piece of paper that portion of my entire proposal has been paid. The same would go then for the rough, the top out. And then the same would go at the finish. And at the finish, you should get a final unconditional release from the plumber. And this would go down the line of every vendor that works on the job. However, there are other people involved, which are, say, the concrete supplier company, lumber supplier, sand for the stucco guy, roofing material that they also have the ability to lien and also should be requested and required to provide a lien release upon their payment. So when material is loaded for the roof, you want the proof that the contractor paid that supplier. The way to get that is through the release from that supplier. So it goes a little deeper than just roofer. It's roofer material, even plumber material in some cases. So it gets really thorough and confusing, but it's if it's organized, it should come with every payment. You should be getting a release, conditional release for the work that's been completed or material that's been delivered. So if you keep it kind of in front of you and understanding as the draws go out, it doesn't become this one big pile at the end.
And in California, Doug, how long after one of these subcontractors or supplies have been completed do they have to file a lien?
It's the 630. You have 30 days for the notifications, but really it's a 6-month window. So the whole thing, I always base it on 6 months. There's varieties of it because you can file a notice of completion, which I would also add to this notice of completion. You record it at the county, the general contractor does it, and it starts the clock, because at the end of that notice of completion period, there are no more liens that are able to be put on your home, regardless of lack of payment, regardless of anything. It notifies and records a document that says this house has been completed per this contractor's signature and stamp. The clock starts. When the clock ends, and I've in a variety of times had money withheld for that notice of completion to expire. It's a common, not so common, but it's been more common, but it's not an unknown practice to withhold the last 5%, some amount of money to make sure that we are clear of all potential liens.
Yeah. And I going back to what Larry said earlier, I know some lenders like to do that so that everything is clear before they release that last amount.
It's the belt and
Larry,
suspenders thing.
Yeah. Larry, anything for Colorado specifically that either varies from what Doug shared, or would you like to expound upon?
Well, Colorado compared to California is a bit of the Wild West. In California, you have to file a print. It's been a long time, Doug, since I built in California, but the owner needs to be notified that the
it's only more complicated.
It's a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
We, quite frankly, the only time that we provide lien waivers is either when we're doing a cost plus build, where we accompany every draw with all of the invoices. Then the owner knows exactly who's done what and for how much. But when we're doing a fixed bid contract, keeping track of all of those subcontractors and vendors, and like Doug said, there's a lot of them. That's a very onerous task. My clients, quite frankly, don't require lien waivers. Their lenders do, and we comply for their lenders. But I have not been asked for a lien waiver in years by my clients. So, and quite frankly, in Colorado, I don't know how they would be protected. I have assigned an unconditional lien waiver at the end of the project. But, if I'm a contractor that hasn't paid all of his subcontractors, there's nothing to stop them from coming back. I could be paid in full and not pay my plumber in full, and he would have the option of coming back. So that's a gray area for us, and I really can't offer a hard and fast
Right.
solution to that problem.
Well, and that, Larry, thanks for bringing that up, because that is something we hear people say they paid their builder, and then one of the suppliers comes back and says they're putting a lien on the property because they haven't been paid. And, is there any way for a homeowner to check?
Not
Or,
that I am aware of,
Okay.
unless the homeowner asks for a complete list, which means that I've got to go to my stucco contractor and find out where the sand came from.
Oh,
And,
yeah,
and where the
Right.
lath came from and where the vapor barrier came from.
yeah,
And so, you know,
it's
that
complicated.
quite frankly is an unrealistic burden to bear. In Colorado, they have four months after they've completed their work to record a lien if in fact they have not been paid, but they also have to provide an intent to lien prior to doing that. So and that's when but the clock starts when his work is completed, or
Got
his
it.
materials have been supplied to the project. And I cannot, and I've been kind of racking my brain because I knew this question was going to come up, and I was trying to figure out, well, how does the owner protect himself from that sort of a thing? And I don't have an answer.
Well, I think the answer is working with a quality builder who makes sure that they're working with trusted subs, right? I mean,
Well,
that would
that's
be your
all in the
best
planning and
protection. Yeah.
preparation. But we're talking closing up a project now. So the horse is already out of the barn. So this is a little bit challenging, but if a lender's involved, you're automatically protected because they're going to require those lien waivers prior to releasing the funds.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, Annie, I'm going to turn the builder's risk over to you so you can explain this, because you're the person on our team who's done the deep dive on this topic.
So builder's risk policy or a construction insurance policy is something that you would need to have in place to supplement your insurance. And Doug and Larry can both speak to this, but normally you would like the builder to take that out. And the reason is because they're going to set the limits, and it's going to cover the things that are not installed if they get stolen. It's going to cover the contractor's tools if they get stolen. So if you have your windows delivered on a Thursday and they can't be installed till Monday, you have that risk of someone coming in and taking them. And in all of these disasters, we continuously have the unsavory who are milling about to try to take advantage of this situation. And so you want to have that policy. You will, as a consumer, as the homeowner, will end up paying for it, but it's best if your contractor takes it out. Now, if your contractor doesn't, you will want to take one out. And you also want the extra liability on there. The one thing that we found kind of disturbing, because nobody knew this before, our city would say, nothing in the house until you actually have occupancy. If you put things in your house, even if it's in the garage, many people have the movers coming because they're supposed to get final occupancy today. And the mover shows up and they don't have access. That's not, you don't have that paper. So if you move everything into your garage, anything happens, first of all, you don't have a full homeowner's policy with contents included. And second, it will void out your builder's risk policy unless you have, there are some that people, I believe it's like a 15-day, and Doug can probably speak to this, if they have a model home or something, they can put a special clause in there for a little leeway in that, but you have to have that clause in there.
And then, go ahead,
Annie,
Larry.
with regard to the builder's risk policy, our clients have been adding that to their homeowner's policy or making sure that their homeowner's policy includes the builder's risk. What is also as vital, if not more so, is that your contractor must have general liability insurance, and that the homeowner, the client, needs to be named as additional insured, so that if in fact there is a construction defect that shows up sometime after you've moved in, that you have a resource to go to, and that would be your builder's insurance policy.
Thank you. Doug, do you have anything on this?
For the builder's risk side, I don't know about moving model furniture in, but I do know that we include it in our standard GC contracts. We pay for it. We found that we buy so many of them that we can get what we think is a better rate. It's the option. If the homeowner or the owner wants to explore it on their own, they can. But we actually add it as a line item in the final. It's one of the line items on the contract. It shows as a direct cost, builder's risk equals this much money, and we just add it to the contract as a. It covers us all. We're more comfortable. They're more comfortable, and we just made that choice.
All right, thank you both for that. We're going to talk now a little bit about just balancing your budget and that bottom line. And we say this at the beginning, you know, being mindful of change orders, their impact on your final bill, aware of the terms of your contract. If the building material costs are changing rapidly, make sure that you know what that impact's going to be. That's always a surprise to people to find out that, you know, especially during COVID, it was a much bigger deal that, you know, the cost, that there was both a time delay and a cost premium on things that should have come in fairly quickly, but their prices were up because of transportation costs and labor shortages. So, and as both Larry and Doug have said, do not let your contractor get ahead of your agreed upon draw schedule. And then, you know, the other thing is just if you're making sure that that full contract is fulfilled. So one that we've heard regularly is that money for like landscaping, that last piece of the finishing the property, you know, the builder will say it's already been used, but that's budgeted and built into there, and it should, they owe it to you in the contract, so it should not have been used. Those funds should not have been used for that. Anything either of you would like to share on that piece? Not
Well, you need to be aware of where your money's going and how it's going out. We use an AIA draw form that indicates the percentage of expenditures every time we do a draw.
Yeah.
So that if we're drawing for 50% framing, it's easy to take a look. Yep, the framing's not done yet. He's only drawing 50%. If the framing is half finished and your contractor's drawing for 100%, that's a red flag. So you want to be looking at that. You want to see where you are relative to your budget prior to releasing the draw or approving the draw.
Right. And so I went ahead and went to that slide with the cautions there. I mean, if you've got a lender, you've got a bit of a check and balance in there. And the same with your insurance company. But again, just pointing out that those draws that they say for, you know, 50% completion of the project don't necessarily line up with what your builder has put together. Some insurance companies are it's very a broad stroke. We have someone in from the 2020 CZU fire who their builder says they're at 75% completion, and their insurance company is saying, no, you're at 50. And so they're at a standstill until either they get the alignment between the builder and the insurance company to get the additional funds to move forward, or they're going to have to come up with that funding themselves to get over the finish line. And so you want to avoid that as much as possible.
And part of having money in an escrow account for your build does offer some protection in this, because the banks will send out an inspector, not for quality, but for milestones. A, B, and C is completed. Oh, of course. Darn it, Doug, it was your fault.
Your turn.
Um, sorry, folks. And they'll send out an inspector. As lay people, we don't know what those milestones would look like. And so having that extra set of eyes and knowing that somebody else is paying attention to that and knows what they're doing, and also will not allow your builder to get farther along financially than the percentage of build is very critical in all this.
Well,
If you're relying entirely on your insurance, however, and have not engaged a lender and do not understand what you're looking at, that's the time to call your architect and have him come out and take a look.
yes. Yes. So, because having a professional help you, be it a private inspector, your architect, someone who has that expertise to do that. Larry, I have a question for you in the chat. Going back to the previous slides where we mentioned change orders. So she has a fixed price contract in Colorado, but the builder has added change orders. How should that be handled?
Actually, the way a change order should be handled, and in our contracts, it doesn't become a change order until it's been signed by both parties. So that means the work is not authorized until the owner and the contractor has signed the change order, then it's authorized.
Thank you. Yeah, that feels tricky because knowing how to navigate that. And again, appreciate both of you giving us your time and expertise today, because as Annie keeps saying, none of us are building professionals. So all we know is what we don't know.
And I used a production builder, and the only time that they introduced change orders was when they could not get a product. So that was very helpful, because it was like, well, if I'm not going to have my faucets, yeah, let me have a choice of picking something really similar, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah, but that's you had that fortune to have them available to you. And unfortunately for a lot of people, it is more of a one-off build. All right, let's go into project completion. So I know we talked about warranties briefly, so would like to give you guys the opportunity to talk about what this looks like and how it actually plays out.
Well, I'll start, Doug.
Sure.
When we sign the contract, we include our warranty policy at the time we sign a contract, so that our client knows what the process is, and it's pretty comprehensive. And then when we get our certificate of occupancy, that's the day that the clock starts, and it's state law, but we offer a 1-year warranty, and it's important that the client understand what is included and what is not, and that they understand some of the elements of construction that are variable. Concrete does crack, drywall does crack. This is what we will fix. This is what is not warranted, that sort of thing. And the more that they're educated, the more realistic their expectations are.
Right. Doug, anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah. How much time do you have on warranty? So warranty is it's really it's expectation setting, and it's it's really the start of the relationship with the contractor. Honestly, you kind of are married after the completion of the home, and it's the fit and finish and how it lasts. The expectation should have been set along the way. There's various, for us anyway, in our design studio or design process. Natural stone takes on different colors. You spill red wine here. We try to cover all of the obvious things, the things that you could stumble over. But as far as expectation setting, it starts at the orientation. It's that one walkthrough. A week later, finish. This is a perfect world. I know, Larry, it doesn't always happen, but I try to go for 0 items on the first, just saying. But you get your walkthrough down to 0 items that are left over from our current situation, meaning here's your house, here's your keys, no items, go for it. And so that usually sets a good tone. When I do my orientations, it's more of the orientation to the house, finding the minor defects or the minor issues, correcting them. And then I usually say you're going to move in and you're going to roll around with your grandchild or your child on the carpet and look under something and over something from an angle you'd never have looked at, and maybe see something you'd want corrected. And instead of jumping up and grabbing the phone that moment for the builder to run out, my advice is to grab a piece of paper and leave it in the top drawer and make it item 1. And you're going to find some things that may or may not be questions or issues or concerns. Of course, no power, no water, it's obvious. But these are the fit and finish details that may have been missed as you move in. And that's usually is, so I usually recommend 30 days of that sort of activity, and then give us a call and we'll come out. We have warranty representatives that'll come out and take a look at your home and advise from there. And that's just kind of the process. We do 11-month walkthroughs as well prior to essentially the year being up. It's kind of like Larry. It's a year in California for fit and finish. There's also in California the SB 800, which dictates how long certain mechanical and structural features of your home should last. It's very detailed, but it's much more than the 1 year, 2 year, 10 year that the industry is used to in other areas. So HVAC systems should last a certain amount of time. Water behind the water line should last a certain amount of time. Everything. It's a very detailed, intense warranty law. So that's the ultimate in California. There are guidelines for every function of a home that has been written down and made into law. But as a home builder, we still primarily do the 1 year, 2 year, 10 year, and we even add a 210 warranty to our builds, to our GC builds. So we add a third-party nationally recognized national warranty. That is a third-party warranty which sets the standards for defects, meaning how big a crack can be, how many cracks, that kind of thing, all the way up to faucets or standing water, anything you would like. It comes with a booklet that helps describe some of the parameters and limitations of the warranty, and it's kind of the guideline. And then it just becomes warranty, then becomes customer service, and we try to go above and beyond customer service because that makes more customers. So that's just the general outline of how we do it.
Right. And Doug, on the screen, I've got the Title VII requirements for action on construction defects. Anything to add to that specifically?
This goes so far in the weeds. If you read it, you'd be an attorney. So
happy to skip it. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe if I knew it, then you'd have a problem because I know how detailed. I don't,
No.
we go above and beyond. The state shouldn't tell me how to build a house, but there's a lot, especially in California, there are a lot of written down things that are law that the state of California does have in this instance. So if you're having a not the best relationship, there are remedies through the state. I don't get that far typically.
Got it. Larry, I have a question for you in the chat, going back to asking the architect to come and check. The question from Jeff is, what if he's got a tract builder, what if it's their architect? So you didn't have an independent architect. Is that still appropriate to ask
But if
them?
it's a builder's architect?
Yes.
Well, ideally, he would be a disinterested party and resort to his professionalism to indicate. But it sounds to me like he has a conflict of interest there. And we do not have our own architects. We have relationships with architects, and we make recommendations to a potential client, and we'll refer them to these architects, but we will let them make the decision as to who they're going to use. But we do not have one on staff.
Got it. So in that instance, if you feel there's a conflict, you might need a disinterested professional.
Right, a peer review.
And there's nothing that says you can't go out and hire your own architect on a task basis to check your builder's work.
Yeah.
Even a contractor peer review. Nobody likes two bulls in the ring, but you can. The contractors, I've done it in the past, only a couple of times. So, hey, come take a look at this. It's usually family, friends kind of thing, but there are resources out there. And if you want a more professional there are companies that do this. There are actual inspection companies that do this.
Got it.
So-
Thank you.
So we have
Um,
one more question in the chat, and it's for you, Doug, because this gal lives in California. My builder had me pay for items directly to the vendors, then would not update his spreadsheet. In the end, his budget sheet looked like he was under budget, but I paid a significant amount outside of the expenses reflected on the spreadsheet. And I don't know if this is a question or if this is more of a comment in the sense of,
Yeah, they should have reduced it, right? So $20,000 plumbing, it was 10 for the labor, 10 for the material, and then she paid the 10 and he still charged 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a change order incident. It
Yeah.
changes the sum of the contract, which requires a change order.
Thank
And-
you.
And it should
Exactly.
not have been, it's easy to do. You trust your contractor. Yeah, sure, he's going to take care of business, but there's no substitute for a written record.
Absolutely.
And the change order will document the change and adjust the contract amount automatically.
Right. So every payment to the vendor should have been a reduction in the contract price, a negative change.
Exactly. Exactly.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's
And we have done negative change orders where people buy their own light fixtures or something like that. We would just,
Oh, sure.
It's common. It's very common. It's not like, don't let somebody be insulted by that. It's how it works.
all right. So then our next slide is just focused on some of those Marshall Fire rebuilding resources, making sure everybody has access to those. When we're talking about this comprehensive rebuilding website, this also includes the resources from Robbie Schwartz and with the energy efficiencies as well. So wanted to make sure people knew about that. You should already be talking to them at this point, but in case you have a question, these are the groups to go to. I'm going to run through our closing really quickly, and then I'm going to ask our panelists if there's anything to add. So if you would like to stay informed with United policyholders, please sign up. If you need information about tonight's presentation, you can email info@uphelp.org. We have our Survivor to Survivor forums, great resource for you. Please take advantage of them. Annie, anything you'd like to add about that?
I would welcome anybody and everybody. There's a number of people on this call who come and visit me every month.
All right. Thank you for joining Annie on these monthly forums. Upcoming Roadmap to Recovery events are on our website at www.uphelp.org/events. And our Ask an Expert forum is a resource for you. So please, you can register. It's free, pose your question, and we will beat the bushes to get the experts to answer your questions. And then lastly, we'd like to thank our funders for this, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'd like to ask our panelists if there's anything you would like to share with the audience.
But this is over. I was just getting warmed up.
Yeah,
So-
well, you're welcome to keep talking. Any words of wisdom we'd love to have from you.
No, it's on and on. I will keep it refrained. But thanks for having me.
Well, thank you both for sharing your expertise. Larry, anything you'd like to add to the folks in Colorado that are still dealing with this rebuilding process?
You know, it's a difficult process, and it is not a sprint. It is a process. I sense that from this forum that we've had that our interested listeners are nearing the end of the process. So, you know, just be alert, and I just hope you hired somebody who's trustworthy.
Well, and trust but verify, right? You know,
Exactly.
checking out those references, seeing the quality of the
Use,
work.
understand, you know, excuse me for interrupting, Valerie, but you need to know what you don't know, and hire the experts to help you out. You know, the architect, the engineers, the HERS raters, whoever. What you don't understand, go to a resource who does understand. And that's how you verify.
And most of those professionals that you've outlined should be covered as part of the cost of rebuilding. The private inspectors are probably the only thing that's not, because that's a peace of mind for you.
Well, it's insurance, and it's valuable. It's valuable. And it helps out the builder too. If he's an honorable builder, and having another set of eyes on it will make him a better builder.
And maintaining that communication with your builder is key.
Well, that goes without saying. You know, that's vitally important.
Yeah, well, I will say a lot of very busy people struggling through this process. There's this urge to just let me sign that contract and get moving so I can handle these other tasks. And unfortunately, this is one of those processes that needs that firm hand on the steering wheel and that constant two-way communication in a manner that works for both parties.
Exactly. I mean, really stay diligent at the end. If that was the whole theme of this, is really, it's the intensity that you started with needs to really happen at the end. Rushing vendors on top of vendors for timelines, you start creating situations that are, they're not the best for a well completed home. And really you want to give the folks the time at the end. And I know I get it. I've been thousands of houses, we've been around it. People want to be in, get it. But the best result is as patient as you can be, and don't just start accepting things that are not acceptable. Pump the brakes, get it right. A good brake pump could clear things out to a much better finish at the right time, but letting things pile up, you're going to get a piece of paper that says you can move in, but you still have the pile up behind it, and now your furniture's in it, and your cat and your dog and your kids and your life, and people are coming in to try to finish and work around that. And it just becomes a really, really unfun situation. So I would just advise to really, if you can, be as patient as you can. The finish is it. It's worth it. It's worth the extra time.
Right. Well, and what I want to say, we had a comment from Amy Ludwig, who was pointing out that there are some people who are just beginning. And so if anyone on today is literally just beginning that process, we have 2 webinars that are recorded that are on that event called The Mechanics of Rebuilding, and Annie, what's the finances of rebuilding. So those 2 are very much to set you up to be as successful as we know how to in beginning this process, and then making sure you take these lessons learned and things to be aware of with you throughout that process.
And for those beginners, pre-construction, do not ignore pre-construction. Civil engineers, architects, structural engineers, soils consultants, elevations and drainage. All of those things. I've been a part of the fire rebuilds quite a bit here the last 5-7 years. All of the major mistakes that cost significant amount of money and are almost impossible to fix are based on poor pre-construction, over-designed homes, under-designed civil plans or lack of civil plans, zero drainage, zero acknowledgement of what was left of the lot after debris removal, when there's also more debris potentially hidden. It's just, I'm still today building houses in fire zones in Santa Rosa where we uncover footings and trees. We just dug a tree stump out today of it's a very, very important part of the process, and could be, and when managed well, still has things, but it put all your effort or a lot of effort into that pre-construction process. Sorry to take over that, but
no, but actually
it is my life's mantra. I have seen the mistake so many times, or the lack of intensity on that part of it.
Right. And Larry, in Colorado, you've got expansive soils and making sure that people are tracking everything they need to. So going back to your point about having those professionals that are your independent experts to set you up, having that architect that's, working for you, not necessarily as part of your builder's team. They might be a partner of, but they're independent, and they can be that, they have that separation, and they're able to represent your best interests.
If you're a layman, you need to line up the professionals. Planning is 95% of the effort. quite frankly, when you get to the place where you're actually starting construction, that's the fun part.
Right.
And all of the hard work should have been done prior to that. And we haven't, that's a different webinar, I understand, and we're at the tail end of the project. But like Doug, I base my success on having planned carefully up front so that we can see the end from the beginning and that we're not surprised by anything. Or if we are surprised, we are so well prepared that we can handle it easily. And I can't emphasize that enough.
So for those of you on this call, I'd like to share with you that this is Larry's first webinar with us. He very graciously joined us. He also has just retired from building. He had his
What?
final walkthrough with his
They let us retire?
with his final client.
I'm entitled, Doug. I'm entitled. I paid my
No, you
dues.
could retire from this.
On
Congratulations.
Monday. Monday was his final walkthrough with a client. And
Oh my gosh.
we will utilize both of them in our Ask an Expert. Doug is building in, he's well versed in California and also Colorado, I have found out. So feel free to, if you have more questions, you can always put them in our Ask an Expert form.
Yes.
And
Yeah, happy to.
one of these guys will ding him and get the answer for you.
Yeah, it's Butte,
You bet.
Butte County, Solano, now Mendocino,
And-
Sacramento, of course, but no rebuilds there. But anyway,
Right. And while Larry is retired in Colorado, we know where to find him
Yep.
yes, and find you, Larry.
until he goes fishing or something, and then we'll have to track him down. Well, I appreciate both of you giving us your time tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who joined us. And again, as Annie said, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to use our Ask an Expert forum to get the answer.